Okay, great. So this is the January 10th meeting of Park. And you can see from the agenda that we have some very focused things to do. Mara and Jen are going to take us through the review of Carl Hyatt's recommendation so we can build a recommendation to the city. And then Beth and Alyssa have been doing some more work on the web, and we're close enough that with a little bit of feedback, we can at least get the pages posted. So we'll talk about that. And then there's been activity behind the scenes on Pierce Island. So we'll talk about that and prepare ourselves for next steps on that. Why don't we vote first to accept the minutes of December 20th? Take a motion to approve those.
So moved.
Ellen, and a second.
Second.
Second by Jen. Any corrections? And Nancy, just interrupt us if you haven't heard something that you want to have. Updates. Nancy will be remote for the next 4 months, probably. But we'll join it. We'll be with us. We were talking a little bit ahead of time. The next 2 days, Randy Cohen from Americans for the Arts is here to do several workshops and a number of activities related to the arts and culture survey that was done that looked at the economic impact of arts, and anyone would be invited to the events. Sean, do you want to talk about things that people might want to? It's not too late to.
Right, yeah, I think there's 2 events that I'm aware of, and
Yeah.
a couple of other invitations, but the big one, the one tomorrow morning is called Arts Means Business, and it's really the economic impact study results. And that's from 8 to 9:30 tomorrow morning at the Seacoast Rep Theater, and breakfast and coffee will be provided. So that's kind of the kickoff. I know that Randy's going to go to the Rotary meeting at the Portsmouth Country Club tomorrow. I don't know what he has in the afternoon, but then Friday morning, there's an event which is more geared towards arts venues and how to use this information to communicate with your patrons and your donors and things like that. So it kind of covers the economic piece and then what to do with the information. There's flyers, there's information that's going to be handed out. So it's a whole. And I think there's other visits that I'm just not inside.
But those are the 2, I think, that are
So
the
2
public
main, yes,
things.
correct.
And the one Friday morning is at 3S, 8:30 to like 9:30. And I don't know if any of you are already planning to go. Ellen, yes, but Randy's a good speaker about the arts in general and the impact of the arts on the economy and the community. I also think it might be a good opportunity for us to ask some questions about public art and the impact of public art and make people aware. So tomorrow it would be chamber people, do you think?
I think businesses, creative economy, some venues, I think it'll be a
City
mix.
council will probably show up tomorrow.
City council?
Yeah.
Okay, so if you can, you don't have to, I don't think, register, but you can on the city's website. Chamber website, no cost, but I think if you register, there'll be a name tag for you.
Right.
So breakfast and meeting. So hopefully we'll see some of you there. One thing, and we'll put this on the agenda next time, but wanted to give people a heads up. Suzanne Woodland, the deputy city manager, contacted me and I'll talk a little bit about some of her concerns about the Pierce Island project when we get to that, but she wanted to gather any changes that we want in the ordinances that apply to public art so that we can do any changes that we think we want and do it at one time so that we're not like dribbling little changes here and there. And so we can send out the ordinances just so people have links to them. And I thought at our next meeting, we would talk about anything that you think. I know we talked a little bit about some definitional changes and some other things that we'd like to make. And just to clarify, there are 2 ordinances. There's a set of guidelines and there's a policy. And we don't really need to deal with the guidelines and the policy because those are more easy to change, but for ordinances go through, 3 readings, a public hearing. So it takes some time and the legal department spends some time on those. So we should get our act together and then get all those changes made at one time. So that's something that's on her mind and she's ready to do it with us whenever, but I thought we could use some time at the end of the month to do that. So in the meantime, homework is to look through those ordinances. They're not long. The procedural guidelines are very long, but the ordinances total 3 pages between the 2 of them. So Kate, do you have any comments about that?
No, everybody should have them because when you first joined the committee, that was part of the packet you received.
Right.
So you should have them. And the city is trying to make sure that we get all these changes made to all of our ordinances across the board as soon as possible, just so that we can move on and address other issues that we have with other documents.
And actually, our ordinances are very searchable online. So if you just like Portsmouth ordinance, arts, it comes right up. So even though the ordinance book itself is kind of daunting. All right. So Jen, do you want to, without Mara, do you want to go ahead?
Sure.
Ahead?
Yeah, I don't know what happened to Mara, but
Yeah. And what I did was to prepare a little intro to this and a little guide for this. So I think Sean is bringing that up. Just so we all are on the same page about what the gift is and a little bit about Carl.
Where? Oh. Here we go. I left that in the email from you, right, Chris?
There you go. I think you clicked on it already.
Oh, that was.
There we
oh,
go.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, so this is the proposed gift from Carl Austin Hyatt. If you go to the next slide, this is the image itself. That's a little more silver tone than the actual image appears, at least in the booklet that we got, but it's from his Salt Pile series, which he did a number of years ago. He's done some landscape series, some stone series, some he did a series in Peru that was a while ago. And then these are from the salt piles. It's 50 by 60 inches. So as we think about site and recommendations for placement, think about that. That's big. And we did find out that it's framed. Sean contacted him. It's already framed, and it's framed with plexiglass, which there is archival plexiglass now. So which is great. That means it's not as heavy as it would otherwise be. It's from a small edition of 6. And we did learn that it is about to be displayed at the Cliff House, unbeknownst to me, apparently has been doing art exhibits.
Friday night.
Okay.
Friday, did anybody know about that? No. Well, it's he let us know that there is a reception Friday night at the Cliff House, 5:30 to 8, but I assume it's on view, for a month or so. But apparently the Cliff House is doing a lot more with arts and engagement for people who come to visit there, which I think is terrific. So it is going to that exhibit. And then the next slide has just a little bit about Carl. He's been in a number of exhibitions. This is just a sampling. And his work is owned by, a number of collections. I didn't remember that he was one of the Piscataqua Region Arts Advancement winners. That's the grant where, a single artist is given like $30,000 to take on a project of their own. And he was a McDowell Fellow and he had a council fellowship. So he's got a great background and his work is wonderful. So the idea is, and Jen will lead us through this, and I put the criteria roughly up there that you can use to guide us. The idea is that out of this discussion, we would develop a memo of recommendation to the city council, because it's the city council that actually has to accept any donation of this type, particularly a donation that has value. So turn it over to you, Jen, and we'll take notes so that we can develop a memo to the council.
Great. Well, I just got a text from Mara saying she's been trying to get in for the last 20 minutes.
Oh, dear.
So I don't know,
Um,
but we'll just,
Yeah.
okay.
In maybe,
no, in Zoom.
In Zoom.
oh, in Zoom.
In
I
Zoom.
thought you meant into the building.
No.
Sorry. My faux pas.
See,
But I'll just keep going and
see-
Yeah.
Not
and
sure
you
if she
can
can
see
get
if you
in.
can Get her in.
Okay.
Give her, maybe she doesn't have the right Zoom. Let's see if that was-
It's also a
Just texted, just emailed me.
call-in number. Potentially.
So-
She could also call in.
yeah. Well, I think I can just get started, so at
Yeah,
least we can get moving.
Yeah.
But I think the one thing that, and we spoke, I spoke with Mara yesterday, we kind of talked about this. Because when we set this up, we set it up as an organic living document. But we also approached it from the perspective of we are going out to solicit art.
Exactly.
We did not put anything in here about if we are going to accept a gift. So we may have to, as we're going through these, look at them, add a bullet, add a section, do something to make that much more acceptable. Because some of the things don't really matter that much, or we may be asking different questions.
Absolutely.
So just keep that in mind as we go through this. And I think the first thing that we have to talk about on the criteria is really when we talk about site. And the question I have, actually, just to even get us started, is, oh, and there's Mara. So the question that we have to start on this, and Mara was going to take this one, but I'll get started until she gets on board, is does the artist have a say in where we actually put the item and put the gift? I know that he had asked for that be into a public space, so to speak, but does he have the final say? Do we have the final say? Who has the final say in actually where does that go? Is that going to be something that we have to have a discussion with the artist about? Or what does that really mean?
I think that's a really good one. And I would say for our purpose tonight, we probably make some recommendations about where we think it might go, or the characteristics of where
Sure.
it might go. But I think we should, we'll have to explore that. I assume once the gift is given, there were no such strings attached except for the public display. So I assume with this gift, there aren't strings, but we need to know that for the future.
Correct. Mara, you there?
I am. I'm really sorry. I have no idea. I started trying to get in at 5 after 5, but didn't work. Hi,
That's-
Hi.
Do you want to?
how are we?
Wanted to talk about the site. Do you want to keep on that one and I'll jump in at feasibility?
Okay, so did we just start talking about, does the artist have any say, or did we say anything else about the site?
We haven't said anything except does the artist have a say? Because I know this is something that you want to talk about.
Well, yes, that's one of the things that I think in the end we might want to talk about. I mean, did you also talk about about our sense of applying these, about how different this is because it's a work that's gifted as
Yeah.
opposed to, yeah, we talked about that.
Yeah.
Right. So I guess there's not that, I mean, I guess we have to figure out how we're going to figure out what the site is, given that the artist wants a public site. And, as you were saying, whether there's how we're going to bring at what point bring the artist into a conversation about that.
So does anybody have any recommendations on where we might be thinking about putting this? Because it's a pretty big piece.
Please.
Luckily, Mara, just you missed that part. It is framed with plexiglass, so we don't have to worry about that.
Oh, goody. Okay, so it's framed, it's printed, and all of that has happened.
I did check with a curator at the Courier because we own some of Carl's work, and he suggested probably we wouldn't want to expose it to light for more than 6 months at a time, just as, for good practice. So it might be, and typically with works on paper, that's even a fairly long time.
Right, right.
So we might want to think about that, where it might be a site where something else goes in its place, or I can't help but thinking when I walked into the, and I'm sure you all did tonight, and saw like right in front of us as you walk up the stairs, that perfectly newly painted wall.
That's
Yeah.
really.
Yeah.
Right. But have we talked about, so I guess you're thinking City Hall is a great place to put it.
Well, I think it is. It's not the only place, but
So other building options
Yeah,
are.
other
like-
thoughts about what people might think is a good site.
if
Senior
we
center.
did the library or schools, we would have to go through their processes. That
Okay.
doesn't mean we can't, but it would need to be something we would make sure they would want to accept.
Mhm. The other city buildings, community campus building, the senior activity center
Yes.
building.
Okay.
Those are the two that I would think of that have just our process and
Right.
no additional process.
Yeah, I think those are interesting examples. The Discover Center is essentially a city building, even though it's not, it's, if you want to think of it rented that way. The Plain School
Mhm.
is a city building, small for this piece.
Yes.
Right.
But, for the future as we think about it.
The Discovery Center strikes me as positive because they have other works of art exhibited. So, I mean, I don't know exactly what steps they take to, keep the work from sun damage, et cetera. But I mean, it seems like they're used to dealing with art, with artworks. An idea that my spouse had was that thematically, the DPW building is really kind of like wacky when you think about that's where it happens.
It's true.
Was
I don't
gonna
think
say
they're
that, but I'm afraid to.
And people do sometimes, I mean, people go there to get their dump sticker.
Well,
Yes,
if you've
There's
ever been in the building on the port, they have one of his
His
works
works.
there.
Oh.
Yeah.
do they? Cool.
There's also the parking office that a lot of people walk by down at Foundry Place, and there's a precedent for photography down there already, but it could be inside an office now. That's a lot of light down there, but it's
Yeah.
closer to the salt pile than any other public building.
Could we perhaps recommend a rotating
I think we could.
placement? So, start off with the biggest bang for, maybe it would be City Hall and that lovely new wall. And then could rotate around to other places?
I think that's a nice idea because the people who come to City Hall are probably not the same people who might go to the parking office or
Right.
Discovery Center. It could give it more exposure.
And the Discovery Center is closed in the winter, so it would be there and not being seen as much.
Right.
So that's actually a great idea.
So we're talking about the Portsmouth Historical Society building, right?
Yes.
The old
Not,
library?
not called the Discovery Center anymore.
Well, true, but
No, I'm just
Unfortunately.
clarifying that for the record here,
Yeah.
so that it gets named, it,
they decided to change their name.
yes.
To what?
Just the Portsmouth Historical Society now.
So
Do we want to have some site visits?
I think I sit on the board of the Historical Society, so let me just say that they're constantly rotating pieces in the some of it from their collection, some of them visiting shows. And so I think it would be, if we've decided that it's coming here, it seems like when it's time for it to move, whatever that cycle is, then you'd want to go to that organization and find the best place at that point
Right,
to put it. Because people,
because the configuration would be different at that time. is
at,
what you're
at the
saying. Yeah.
Historical Society, and that might be true in other places too, and how they're using their site. So it might make the most sense to do it that way or contact all of those places and say, would you be interested in the future in having this? Here's how big it is. Here's what it looks like. Come to your site, because maybe the Historical Society has an exhibit where they could add that in as one of the pieces.
Could be loaned.
Or,
Yeah.
right, or somebody else has a particular time that they would like to have it on view. So just a thought.
Yeah, Kate.
I was gonna say, this just brings up two other issues that this committee should be thinking about, is a arts loan program
Yeah.
in general for all the works in the collection.
Mm.
But secondly, we need to think about, where does it go when it's not on display?
Exactly.
Where does
And
it-
so
where does it
that
start?
is, there's challenge there, and it's not like we have an arts preparator on staff or something, so we have to think about that.
Right, yeah, these were all my questions. One, does the city own any other art
Oh, yes.
that
lots.
that's, and who manages that?
Well, it's catch as catch can.
Yeah, generally, the library manages the largest collection
Yeah,
of the city's art.
Yeah.
Because the city hall, we do not have storage.
But
um,
if you
space.
think of what's in City Hall, there's some pretty major, the blood.
Right,
piece, the
yes, that's
Sarah
the
Hatton
question,
piece, they're major pieces just next door.
but it, yeah.
But
okay.
they're placed there and they're not moving typically.
But it seems like if we're accepting something and trying to fit it in with an already existing system of art management, that we, there's no
I don't
management.
believe there's an art management system.
It seems like there
Yeah.
should be, because you said the library has their own process.
Yes.
The Historical Society clearly curates shows,
That's right.
and that's,
So it sounds like maybe the best we can do is to recommend that it start at City Hall. But we think the idea of having it after it's rested for its time. Other places where we think it could be of interest would be the parking office and the DPW. And we'd be open to lending it to the Discover Center, something like that.
Yeah.
But, Alyssa, you bring up that, and Kate, this larger thing that probably would fall to this committee as well to begin thinking about.
And in moving it, I think that moving it around is a really great idea, because that will maximize its being seen, but it also, because, I think art is fragile, and moving is one kind of, experience in an artwork that then kind of brings out how its vulnerabilities. We got to really be careful about keeping track of it and knowing where it is, and so
If city staff are going to be moving those eventually, they probably could get some training for how to handle that works of art.
The library, when they did their moving, actually uses the Jeff, who lives locally, who's a preparator at the Courier, and he
Great.
actually they hired him because they have like that big Celia Thaxter piece. But it also suggests we should do an inventory. The
Yes.
library has an inventory, I
Right.
know.
But-
But I don't think there's a city inventory.
mhm.
that's a great idea.
That would be good. And also an assessment of, I'm just thinking about the state of the works now. And so there's something to compare it to see if
Yeah.
over time there
Yeah.
are issues like Sarah's work.
Exactly.
Is there any, do we ever have to worry about the value of them? Like for the insurance purposes and all of that? Do we have, is that
Well, I
something we
think-
need to worry about?
I don't think we have to worry about it. I believe
Or-
those things are blanket covered under the city's overall liability. But that's why we need an inventory, because if they're not listed somewhere, they wouldn't be.
Mhm.
Yeah. Cool.
All right. That's probably the most complicated of the criteria, yes?
I think it really is. And I think I'll just jump into the feasibility of it and just, again, some of the questions that we have, because it's a gift and not something that we are going out for bid or anything. It's just, especially for something like this, because you told us it was framed. That was actually the other question we had before that is, if we accept a gift, do we have to worry about what condition we get it in? Do we have to worry about the printing of it? Do we have to worry about the framing of it? How are we going to hang this? You know, and all those pieces that those probably need to be a bullet point in the
Yeah.
feasibility of it. And because of the budget, how does that work? Do we have enough of a budget of ourselves within our committee to be able to afford to do
Yeah.
those things?
I mean, I think the fact that we have some dollars and we'll have some dollars in the public art fund helps. But as you're talking, I'm almost thinking there's a little subsection within each of these that is for gifts.
And I'm thinking, just to kind of keep our discussion going, if that makes some sense, Mara and I can kind of take a first stab at it.
Yeah.
And then in a future, or whenever we have time to be able to put that back in, we can certainly address it and, you know, wordsmith it at that point. But because we went through this and it was like, oh, how does that
Yeah.
really matter? And do we have to have a bullet point when it's a gift?
Yeah.
And for instance, you know, talking about, so we went through our various criteria, you know, talking about how is this different because it is a gift and how does it relate to some of the things we said. And I think that, you know, in terms of the aesthetic, for instance, in terms of the aesthetics, there's like, you know, I mean, I think most people feel very enthusiastic about this piece. And I mean, I don't know, am I presuming too much, but Jen and I were aware that somebody could offer to gift us something that perhaps there wasn't so much enthusiasm about. And, you know, how could we, you know, I mean, do we automatically say, oh yeah, if you want to give it to the city of Portsmouth, we'll take it? Or do we have a process where, you know, we kind of like make it possible to discuss how perhaps the work doesn't fulfill some of our criteria?
I think it's really important to remember that the policy, we have the public art referral and acquisition policy that defines a clear set of criteria that the work must meet for the council to accept it. So when this committee writes this memo, it's things like the making sure that there is money to maintain the piece
Yeah.
of art. You know, what is the condition? Is there a maintenance plan for the piece of art? So we already have some limited criteria that we need.
And
to
they
meet,
all
but-
fit within these criteria, but to
Exactly.
crosswalk
Hmm.
them, I think.
No, that's a great point, because we didn't, I mean, that was some of the stuff that we were going to be addressing on, especially on the feasibility is the ongoing maintenance and the durability and all those things. But for this piece, because we are familiar with it and know it, we kind of just said, okay, we all accept that part. But Mara brings up the good point about the aesthetics of it.
Yeah, let's go
And-
on to that next slide, because
Mara, do you want to take this one? Because you want to talk about this one.
Which, the aesthetics?
Yes.
Well, you know, we kind of have criteria as to, you know, as to various considerations that we'd want to take into account, you know, in if somebody was proposed, you know, in accepting a proposal for work. And I think that, you know, here we're looking at this work. And I mean, I don't know, do we feel we want to talk about, you know, the aesthetics element shape this specifically, or, you know, can we agree that we all feel that it's, pardon?
but it might help, Mara, if we expressed why why we're enthusiastic about it, what it, what characteristics, when you think of this, what we're expressing it to the city council, why we think this is a particularly good example to accept, I guess. So I
No,
think
that's
it will
a good-
help us to document it so that if we get a piece that isn't what we're enthusiastic about, we also have that on the record.
Okay, well, I can start off with, I think that, I mean, if we, I think certainly, what? I think the aesthetic, I'm getting feedback.
We're hearing you very well.
Oh, good. Well, we could just go through the various elements that we think are important, such as, do the aesthetic elements function as a cohesive whole? I mean, I think that for me, the part about that it fulfills particularly well is that it's such it is really, we list imagination and innovation. So imagine it's he's looking at something that's so everyday and, such a ordinary part of life in Portsmouth. It's work, and yet he sees it as this monumental event in landscape. That's very imaginative and innovative in his vision. I mean, that's certainly how I see it. I mean, I think that in the work fulfills our statements of what makes an aesthetically appealing work of art. I think it really functions very positively in that way.
I mean, for me, the expressiveness was really what it was, because it really has a lot of emotion in that one, because it's something that we see every day. And to Mara's point, it's like, that's such an everyday thing, but you just look at it and you're in love with the salt piles all over again, because it's just, they're so beautiful in the way that he has done it. I also like the historic accuracy of it to a point,
Right.
because that's what they look like. And I don't know what they're going to look like in 50 years, but that's what they look like now.
Right.
Because again, it's a photograph, and I don't think it's been doctored up too much to be able to Photoshop it. So I think that hits for those two, that they hit really strong for me.
Yeah.
And perhaps his choice of black and white
Yeah.
might be
Yeah.
materials related to the work's intent. I mean, that was a choice that he made, and it's very powerful.
And
Right.
just the scale of it. I think the black and white and the scale of it, because we're not used to seeing black and white images that large usually. And so it really has a strength.
Right. I mean, I think in all those ways, he takes this really everyday, ordinary, workaday part of life and makes it monumental and really epic. And that's, and for that, I think because of that, it really, fulfills all of those criteria as an original, imaginative piece of work of art. And he's definitely, the use of the black and white is so stark and evocative. And I mean, it's his forms just speak to each other. The forms speak to each other. I mean, I think there's like a little, and historically and locally, there's a bit of a bridge in the background. Anyway, so I think that that this work, you can, we don't need to analyze it endlessly, but I think that we can talk about those incredibly positive, with how it is so positive as an aesthetic element, where they work together to create a cohesive, expressive whole that really fits with the context, which is our city, the city. And it's, anyway, to be all, that's. So, yeah,
And I think the last part that we are going to talk about is the artist's experience in history. And this one, we know the artist, so we don't really have to go too deep into that.
Yeah,
The diversity doesn't really make any, don't have to really worry about that at this point because it's a gift. So again, that's something that we probably do have to address.
on the other hand, I'm thinking it includes the diversity of media.
True, very
I
true.
don't think most of the public art that the city has, I don't think of, obviously they have photographs, but not artistic photographs. So it adds to a body of work.
Good, valid point. Good point there.
yeah.
And I guess the other part about the other questions that we had were really about the installation and the schedule. Because it's a gift, I'm assuming that, again, we need to ask that question. It's with artwork and with print, it's rather easy. But if it's some kind of sculpture and something that needs something, we need to make sure that who's actually going to be doing the work of that.
Yeah.
This one is not as critical, but something else might be.
Yeah.
And the other thing is a timetable, because somebody's giving it to us. This is going to be up at the Cliff House. Do we have a timetable that we have to work with? It's going to be available on that date and we need to address it by that date, or what happens to it after it goes to the Cliff House?
Yeah.
Oops, because it's such a sizable piece. It's not like you can put it in the back of your car.
Yeah. And something that is not in our art donation policy is, are you accepting it for all time into a collection?
Mm.
Are you accepting it for a period of time after which you may no longer display it, because that's something we need to, when we look at those policies, we need to think about.
I think this is important because the policy does say the city reserves the right to relocate donated artwork.
Sure.
And it's word for word, donated artwork from time to time, and to not display a donated piece of art.
Yeah.
So it's important to know that that's what the policy says, and it's public, it's on the website. But we need to make sure the artist knows this too.
And that, that's often with museums, that's often a critical point. And the reason why some museums turn down incredible collections, because the donor wants them displayed in perpetuity and nobody has that kind of space. So I think that's all reasonable. So it sounds like it's an enthusiastic recommendation to the city council with a number of these rationale as part of it.
Right.
And it'll be great for you two to take up, what else we need to do with our policy to make it fit better, our guidelines to make it fit better.
Well, I mean, like I said, this was great because we were sat there yesterday and went, uh-oh.
Yeah.
We didn't take into consideration this part, which is great because it's a living document. And we talked about that at the beginning. So
Yeah, nothing like a real example. right?
exactly.
So that's good. But also it raises good questions for us about the inventory of the art, who has responsibility. And we need to work some of those things out.
Yeah. So Chris, are you going to write a memo to Carl accepting the work, or are you going to take the next step?
The city, what I'd like to do is write a memo to the city council.
Okay,
They accept it, and then we would suggest obviously that they write a thank you to him, and with some of the quotes maybe from what we've said.
yeah,
I
great.
think that's the next step. Kate, is it reasonable that could happen on the 16th, or is that if we do a memo and that they?
It's too late for the 16th, and the agenda is very packed.
Very packed.
So it would be the next meeting, which I think it's early February.
5th, maybe,
It's the 5th, yeah.
February
So it's
5th.
really early.
which is the Wednesday before is the deadline to get it on. the
Right.
agenda.
So that might be a good, and I would assume that possibly at that, there would be a future meeting when Carl might be invited to actually present the work. But that meeting, the 5th, would just be the formality of accepting it. Is that,
Mhm.
okay.
Yeah. Okay.
All right, great.
So do you need like more quotes to put into your letter about why we think it's an appropriate work, or do you think you got enough?
I'll share it with, I'll write it up, share it with Sean. He can share it with all of you to see if there's anything else you would like to add.
And Nan,
Excellent.
you must
Super.
have written down a few of those too, right?
Yeah. And we have it on tape too.
Yes.
Yeah.
I-
Good. All right.
You're on mute, Nancy.
Okay,
Sorry,
well,
but no, I did not. I said the aesthetic qualities of the piece were discussed. I'm not doing that word for word stuff. Sorry.
I think I have got. to
We have
know-
a video.
Got it on tape.
And we've got the tape.
all right, great. Okay,
All
well,
right.
I'm going to go on to the next, which starts in 2 minutes. I hope I have better luck getting on. See you
Thank-
all. Thank you so much. I'm sorry I'm missing the next part. Bye.
So Beth, over to you for,
All right,
web.
let's start with the mission statement. So thank you everyone for sending in suggestions and edits. Sean pulls up the latest version.
A second.
No pressure.
Always pressure.
Um,
Get to it.
we have a single, we kept to a single concise mission statement itself, but then we added on some of the responsibilities. And we can put both of those out on our website and wherever we communicate about the mission.
Just
Yep.
Is it here?
It's, no.
Is
it's
that
not
it?
there.
Landing page.
No,
content?
no, that's the most recent one I sent. You sent it out to everyone.
Oh, I sent it
Oh,
out on
yes.
on the invitation.
It's also in the deck for the Pierce Island Art Project. If you wanna, if that's easier to get to.
Let's see.
If you, yeah, if you open that PDF, Pierce Island. That one?
This one here.
Yeah, and if you go to slide 3. We can just jump, it'll
I printed things and then I
Really?
ran out of the office and
keep going. keep
left it
going.
on the printer.
Ah, here we go.
There we go.
Right here.
Another way to get at it. You have a Word doc too.
Yeah,
Oh, no, that's an old, yeah, no, that's it.
No,
So,
Of course.
to champion high quality public art for the city of Portsmouth, New Hampshire, and advise the city council on public art related topics. Which great point, Ellen, about that last part. That's where we got that. Obviously we could spend a lot of time developing a mission statement together, going back and forth, but that along with some of the responsibilities is what I came up with from all the feedback. Are people good with that?
I think it captures. Captures everything.
Great.
Excellent.
All right, done. The
Nice.
other thing that I've been working on was this actual deck. I don't know if you want to, are we doing that today or?
Is if there, I guess I would
It's kind
just
of
say
zipping.
Beth took the deck that Nancy and Mara, I think, had worked on and refined it with some more pictures and some updated language and some other things. We can run through it really quickly,
Okay.
maybe just to.
Sure.
Do I have it here?
So
Yeah, if you just,
yeah, you can go back to the top. So basically first starting, we can go quickly through this, Sean, but basically, the next slide, what is public art? A couple definitions that are out there, some examples of ours. And Kate, I didn't know if you needed a presentation to the council. You might be able to use pieces of this if you want to talk about the Pierce Art project. So another more considerations. And you all have this, so we don't have to read it. And then we had who we are, what our mission is. Then we go on to talk about the public, what the percent of arts is. I love this text, it's okay.
yeah.
And I'm not saying anything about this piece that's out there, people might not like, but I thought it was perfect for this one. Why we have it out there, it doesn't have to be beautiful. Then we go right to the Pierce Island Art Project, location. And I added in the site size there, which was quite large. And then we have this great background on the history of Pierce Island. And when whoever's presenting to the community, you can spend as little or as much time as you want to on these pieces. So here's some of the history and then more modern history, which is interesting as well. And then this shows some of the ways in which it's used. And then we moved on to the input. So I was thinking we could actually remove these slides if you wanted to use pieces of this to the city council.
You should all know that I have been turfed to miscellaneous to make an announcement about
Oh,
dates.
well, you won't. need
And that's it
Yeah.
for the 16th because our agenda is so full.
Yeah,
So
so we'll use the 16th as an announcement.
Yeah.
But maybe there will be other opportunities for some of these pieces, and hopefully some of the counselors might come to the input sessions we do as well.
Great.
and we can always do it on the 5th if
Yeah.
the public input dates are after that.
Perfect.
So,
And then
good.
we'll tell them how it's used, some project steps, and we can adjust any of this, of course.
so what's great is we now have this, and so we're kind of ready to go. Beth and I did work on it, the first press release, and hopefully you saw it in the newspaper or in the city's newsletter or in some different places that basically just talks about the Pierce Island project. What we need to do tonight, I think, is to set some dates for those public input sessions. We don't all have to be there, obviously, but I think it would be nice if at least
I-
2 or 3 of us were at each one of those. Yes, Nancy.
Sorry, can we back up just a little because the agenda mentioned approval of the mission statement, and that would be something we would need to vote on.
You're right. We should vote on that. So let's do that. The mission statement as presented. Beth. I think we can take Beth as as moving it.
I move.
And second for Jen. All in favor? And that's
Aye.
all with thanks
Yay.
to the work. Thank you, Nancy. I have been in touch with the schools, and both Anna Nuttall, who leads art at the visual art at the middle school, and Eric Moore, who is the department chair at the high school, are both very enthusiastic about finding time. It's a little, they both are getting back to me because it's change at middle school, it's change of classes, and then at high school, it's finals coming up. So they're going to get dates together, but the high school has an art club. And Eric is looking for projects for the art club, and he thinks this is a perfect one for them. And actually, because we learned that Monty, it's not appropriate for Monty to do a logo for us, I wanted to see what you all thought of asking the high school students to give us some.
That's a
examples.
great idea.
Because they're looking for some, engagement. And both of them would be interested in having kids engaged at different points in this process, which I think is great. So I can't tell you the number of exclamation points that were in Eric's email back. I think he'll be very, very happy about this. So in looking at, and I checked this the other day, I think we probably, in terms of where we could do in-person session, obviously the library, people are used to the library for that. And there were dates available and starting at like 6:30 on the 24th, 25th, and 31st of this month, or February 12th through 15 also looked good. And so I thought we might try to select one in each of those weeks to give a little time between that. And if it's easy for people to just check now, or we could also do a poll of you if you prefer to do that, if you need to check later.
And then, could you say the dates again first? Sorry.
The 24th, 25th, and 31st, at least as of yesterday, it looked like we could.
Well, the 31st is our next meeting
I was gonna
day.
say, we have a meeting in there somewhere.
Yes, but we could do it after, we could cut our meeting short and do, you know,
Mhm.
Yeah.
proceed to that as a possibility. We don't have to do it that way, obviously.
Those dates work for me, if any of the options are virtual.
And that's the other thing. In that second week, we might also do a virtual so that we could give people two options that week, an in-person and a virtual, and then do an earlier one as well. If that makes sense to people.
So we're talking about the January one or the January and February one?
Do one in January, one in-person in January at the very end, if we can, that like the 24th or 25th. I agree, it's might be packing a lot in to try it on the 31st. If we can, we'll have to do a press release right away to do that.
Monday.
And then do a second in-person that week of February 12th, and then do a Zoom also that week. Yeah, Kate.
There is a city council budget work session on the 24th at 6
Okay.
o'clock. Mona's next opening is the 25th, just so you're all aware. And I'm actually booked on the 31st. I could probably do the 25th, but not the,
Yeah, I'm not sure that from the openings I've been to, I think we're looking at a different audience. So the fact that we have two, that we would do the 25th, and we would also give people a second option. So if we look at that, if we try for the 25th at the library,
Do we think we have enough time to publicize it between now and then?
well, if we can do a press release this week
Mhm.
and it gets out next week.
That's just a week in advance. I don't know what's typical, but that seems sort of short for people to sort of get it on their calendar. Not saying it's a no-go, just
Yeah.
raising that as a,
We'd announce it at the city.
Did you,
council on the
did you
16th.
recommend two in person, Chris, another one in February?
One in February, one in January, and then a Zoom.
So, Melissa, maybe, you know, we might get those early adopters, like I've already got people reaching out to me. And then maybe, you know, once something already happens, then other people get clued in and we have another one in February. It might work out well.
The dates.
Yep.
Yeah, we'd announce all three of the dates.
Yep.
So
We do the Zoom one in between those two in-person ones.
do that.
And we can, and then on the Zoom one, we can say to people, if you want to hear this again or whatever, you can come to
Yeah.
the in-person session.
So if we're looking at then, if we try to do that second week of February, we might select the 15th as the in-person and then pick the Zoom earlier that week. Is that?
So February 15th in person.
Yeah, I'm sure that'll be a knock on wood, but that nobody has filled that in since yesterday for the Levinson room. But we'll confirm that. And then the 25th might be a little, you know, who knows, because that's coming right up, but let's see. I do think the library is an ideal space for this, partly for parking.
Yeah.
Mhm. So we'll try for those. And then we'll
And
get
I can
a
draft
release
that,
out. Okay,
send it over.
and we have the sort of the plan with Monte. We will also invite the kids to come to these as well. And what I was thinking is what we probably should do is to identify a few, you know, lists of people where we think they're most likely to that we're most likely to get folks. So for example, I was thinking if we could ask the Portsmouth Historical Society, would they announce it to their list? Because they put out announcements. So Ellen, is that something you might do?
Yeah.
And I was thinking, I'll ask Russ if PMAC would do it. So these are folks that have good email lists, I think. And I don't know
Is
if
there a neighborhood committee one, Chris?
there's a neighborhood committee. I looked to see if they're meeting, and they don't have any meetings on the schedule coming up, but I don't know if, Kate, is that something that you would know, or you know how to?
I know how to reach them. I can definitely reach out to the chair and ask.
Okay,
they would
and then letting them know that we would send them the press release so they could forward that.
And would Monty do Facebook, city Facebook and Instagram?
Yeah,
Any content you send him, he will push out
Yeah.
to the channels.
Great.
Was there a date for the virtual one that was selected? Am I missing that?
we're gonna try for the 12th.
Okay, if it's at night, I have a PMAC board meeting, but if it's during the day, I can make that.
What do people think about doing one during the noon hour? Or,
It's a good balance. I won't be able to do that one, but
I think if you have 2 at night and 1 at noon, I think that.
try for the Zoom at noon, yeah.
Okay.
I think some of my work things, when there are parents involved, we try for the noon, and that has actually worked well.
So the
Well, it's out.
25th, what time are the 2 in-person ones?
City meetings typically start around 6:30. That seems to be what people are used to.
Okay.
Um,
So the.
So we'll try for
25th,
that.
And then the February in-person one was
The 15th,
15th. Okay.
but we'll confirm that as soon as we get the sites, because we need to, make sure we do that.
Great, yeah.
And then as soon as we have the release, anybody feel free to send it to our contacts as well as social media, private contacts. So I think that will work.
and Nancy, are you tallying who's available when for these?
What-
Are you tallying who's available for these? I know I might be able to do the 2:15, but I can't do the other two.
Yeah.
You mean, am I writing it in the notes?
Why don't we do that via email
Okay.
once we
I'm
confirm?
not doing that.
Well, also check.
I'm just putting the dates in.
So I'll try tomorrow to confirm the locations, and then Sean, we can collaborate in an email and people can
Yep.
X in what you're available for.
So we shouldn't send anything out.
Not
until
just
we-
yet,
Right.
yeah.
Here,
Right.
we've confirmed all the pieces.
And it'll be easy to do a press release since we did the first
Yeah.
one already, so we'll have that ready.
And I'll make sure I announce them on Monday night or
Good.
Tuesday night typically for city council.
Okay.
Yes.
Tuesday, right?
That's right, because it's Monday.
Oh,
Yeah.
and let me just mention, I alluded to Suzanne, when Suzanne saw the press release, she expressed a concern that we manage expectations. And I think it's good advice that I think she was, obviously the $150,000, 1%, it's public knowledge. It's in a normal RFP process, you might hold back some information, but that's already public knowledge. So we can identify what we want to put as limit over that. But I think she was feeling with the experience of Endeavor, where they had not planned in advance for site costs. And the site costs ended up being, half of the $60,000, they're half of the overall cost. Site costs don't have to be that much depending on the site and the planning ahead and all of that. But I think Suzanne wanted to make sure that we were thinking about site costs, thinking about the full set of costs. And I assured her that our criteria includes that. I think it's good advice because it may be that an artist proposing something is not aware fully of the site costs. So before we would select something, we need to make sure that we go to that amount. Because she was thinking that, that's not a lot of money for public art. And I was saying, well, when you look at, it's actually a lot of money. When you look at the national amounts that are spent for public art and what typical art costs. So we also don't want to overpay for something because we have the money, but we want to make sure that we are, that we're not thinking of, and we're not letting the public think that we're getting many pieces for that, or that we are, going to, for this one, be raising separate dollars. Although that is a possibility, it felt like we're going to have to raise dollars for in the future for like Bohenko Gateway. So for this one, it would be great to have the experience of staying within a budget. So, so I think, that was good information, and I haven't received it yet, but she's going to share the contract for Endeavor with us, so we see how things were framed out, and we learn from that experience.
I do have one question on these meetings. Have we decided who's actually going to do the presentation parts?
We haven't, and I think once we see who's available, we can decide how to divide that.
Perfect.
And do, trade off across those. Yeah, I thought until we figured out when and how.
Perfectly. I just wanted to make sure that was brought up as far as like,
But I think there are a number of roles when you think of how that is
Mhm.
both the presentation, but then the input, the gathering of
Correct.
the input. A couple of things we can do with that.
Yes, the meetings will not necessarily be recorded or something.
The input piece is.
Like these are.
That's right. So we'll have to do that in a way that allows people to give their ideas. And then once I get the dates from the two art teachers, we'll also see if people are available. The art club meets at like 2:30 in the afternoon, so that'll make it hard for some folks. And I'm not, Anna, I think, is thinking of during the day with as the new semester starts with a group of kids. So anything else we should talk about tonight?
So we did send out the press release and directed people to our landing page, which has not been updated.
Right.
So we do need to talk about that. And Alyssa and I prepared some material at the end of last year for you to consider. We didn't really go into detail in that together. One of the pieces was having information about the members, like a headshot and a couple bullets.
Yeah.
I have all of them except for Kate and Nancy. And then I apologize. I thought Bob had stepped off as well.
Bob
oh.
has.
Oh, okay. Well, then I do not
Oh, I'm sorry.
apologize.
Bob
Not,
White.
not Bob White, Bob Thorson.
I knew Bob Thorson had.
Okay.
But we still have Bob White?
As
far as we know.
Okay,
I
I did.
And-
forget him.
I would
I-
like to say, just as the note taker, he's missed 3 meetings in a row, and generally that in most committees or most 3 meetings in a row, not attending is usually when somebody is no longer. We should maybe decide something.
Yeah, Sean and I talked, we need to contact him and see what's up, just like we did with Paul before. So we'll follow up with that, Nancy, because again, for the amount of work we're taking on, we're a small group, so we need every slot.
And I will submit information if I'm appointed. I'm still not technically
Oh,
appointed.
of course.
So I don't want to make any presumptions about this, so.
They're also waiting on appointment of new members, one or
Yes.
two.
Yeah, we've had one appointment,
Oh.
Lenny Mulaney.
Oh.
And I think we're waiting to see if the mayor is appointing anyone else yet. We do have openings and he's aware.
So
I
this-
just don't know.
And I have
Reach out
another
to Lenny,
applicant
right?
Sure.
who
Yeah,
would like to.
You send me your
And that's just
email
rolling,
address.
right?
I can,
I'll-
or
I'll check with
can ask
the
you.
clerk to make sure they got a letter and they sign their
Okay.
oath. They have to sign their oath before they can.
okay,
It's
All
a
right.
big thing. Oath.
we
All right.
we didn't, any of us do it.
I know, I don't remember doing an oath.
No.
Never know.
You get a letter from the city clerk saying that you've been appointed to.
Thanks.
A one-line letter, didn't we?
Yeah.
I
Maybe.
think so.
Okay,
There was no oath.
No oath.
We could all, we can oath. Here,
Wow, the
together.
EDC takes an oath. You know.
We should take an oath.
I don't know. On this side, we're working on standardizing some procedures. The committees and
Lenny gets an
training
oath.
for new committee members. This
Mhm.
committee was fortunate to have someone come in and
Yeah.
talk about what, standards were and right to know and all those things, but not every committee
Right.
has been so fortunate. So we're working on that right now.
No, I think it's a great idea. I think, because otherwise you just get thrown in and you're not really sure.
So I'll do a little research, make sure it's all set, and then I can add her to the distribution list. I can let you all know, Chris, if you want to reach out. and
Okay, sure.
Formal chair welcome.
Yeah, I'd love to do that. What else? Beth?
So the idea of going through, and the one I sent you this afternoon, Sean, if you can open that
Is
one,
it-
that's
is it
not,
this one? or
no, that's just the
not this
committee
one?
members. I sent you a lot.
Um, let's see.
Uh,
You know, the idea is to approve all the text so that we really can give it to Monty to just cut and paste.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, that's the line.
so this is what you saw originally when Alyssa and I were making general recommendations, which we all agreed that we would do that. Then we came to sort of, then I'll do it page by page. So the new landing page would have that content, right? The city of Portsmouth continues its proud history. You know, you can take a closer look at the verbiage. I'll insert that memo, that mission statement, and then have a learn more about the work and framework. And then we can either go to the virtual map once we have that in place, check, or a photo gallery, meet our committee members. Like I'm envisioning some bullets at the bottom of the initial landing page saying, contact the committee chair, find more here.
And there's the standard process for that, for communication. that
Oh,
Monty has set up for all.
Oh, good.
Sorry.
Okay.
Well, if I have that, if you
This
could send
is-
me that,
this
I'll
looks
work that
fine.
in so he can just copy and paste it.
Or he'll do it.
Or he'll just do it. Okay, that's fine.
So Beth, are you thinking that right now, for immediate?
I don't think we have,
For immediate, just the opening pages, right?
yes, opening pages. If we just have that, it's fine, except we probably want a subpage on projects so that we can even have, and I'm happy to draft something that says we're in the process of doing the Pierce Island Art Project. Here are the dates of our
Yeah.
public input.
Yeah.
I mean, just something if people
Yeah.
come to it. Everything else we
Yeah,
can
something for
slowly
current
add.
content that you
Yeah.
want people to be able to get more information.
So
Exactly.
except for member data right now, we need with Nancy and then we get Kate. Is there anything else we need to just get the initial stuff?
I think we're okay. I mean, I'm confident, Alyssa and I are confident on like the little edits we made to the definition of public art.
Yeah.
To the criteria. And again, it'll be evolving, but we could have what we have now as of X and have that as an attachment, but say, you know, these are the correct categories we take into account: goals, site, cost, aesthetics.
Yeah.
Like, I think we have most of that here. But like I said, we're confident in the text. We've gone
Mhm.
back and forth, but I wanted to give you guys the opportunity. And then we can continue to evolve it.
So, because this is a real time boundedness, it's something we'd like to probably do within a week or so, right?
I can work on it. this
So
weekend.
if,
Let you.
so everybody does everybody have a current version?
I think you sent it out today.
What you
To
sent
everyone?
today?
That's why, yeah, I don't. have-
That's what we.
Or did I send it to you?
You
Maybe
sent
you
it to
didn't send
me.
it out.
All right, so I think that's what I want to make sure we have your current version. It sounds like,
Yeah.
Sean, if
Yeah.
you send that to everybody, what you got today, and anything that we find that we think needs to be changed, just in the opening pieces as
Yep.
Beth described it, we can get that to Sean.
Yep.
And let's try to turn that right around so that we can have something up by the time people start discovering us through.
Yeah.
these other
And I think we can have those sub pages listed to the side. And then if you click
Yes.
on it, just say under construction or whatever.
Yeah, everybody
And-
does that, so
yeah.
that's fine.
So
I think that's great. I'm so glad you guys have done this. It
This is
looks
so much work.
terrific.
Good.
It's gonna be very appealing.
We love the high school putting the logo. That's gonna be so great. I think that's just.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Okay.
Again, it's
One
public
thing
art.
I wanted to say when everything else is over, so.
I think Beth, that's,
I'm good.
okay, good.
So I realized that I did have a comment on the mission statement and I wanted to, I'm sorry that I didn't make it at the appropriate time. But it says to champion high quality public art for the city of Portsmouth, New Hampshire, and advise the city council on the public art related topics, do we want to say city government and not just city council?
Tell us your thinking.
There might be times that the city manager comes to us and says, you know, this has been brought in front of me. I don't know what to do, you know, about this. And what would you
see.
suggest your
Yes.
direction? You know, that's not
What-
city council.
What if we just said advise on public art related topics, make it even shorter and keep it?
Right. So it's open.
I think that's a very good,
Yeah,
Good
that's a good
suggestion.
point.
And then in the bullet points, it says provided guidance for those funding, developing and installing work of public art. Do we want to be clearer? Is that private? Is it only government? Is it,
I think it's,
and that's fine. That's why I'm bringing these up now.
yeah, I think if, let's say a
Sorry, I didn't
developer
bring them
came to us and said, you know, we'd really like to commission a piece for this new project. Do you have suggestions of a list of artists we could send this RFP out to? We'd be happy to do.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Mhm. And
So
You-
do we need to adjust that further, or do you think this encompasses
No.
it?
I think it
That's okay.
encompasses.
Okay.
So let's just take that as an amendment. Since we did vote on this, let's take that as an amendment to the short statement, removing the city council and just assume that, does everybody agree with that? Yes,
Friendly amendment.
friendly amendment. Okay.
Sorry, I was
No,
late
no,
to
that's
the-
good. It's fine.
That's a good catch.
Thank you.
a good
yeah,
catch.
that way you can do the HDC and the planning board and the.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
No, that's right.
very good point.
All right. We got a lot done today.
Good. True.
Always impressed.
Yeah.
In the last third of the meeting, how things
Yeah,
just get done. They
exactly.
get done.
Accelerate.
Gets out
right.
really fast.
I am just a question about, we have this proposed public input session before our next meeting. And there seems like a lot of organization needs to be accomplished. And that's, how will we, like, do we want to do some next steps?
Yeah, what I
So
would,
make a plan to do
I'm
that.
glad you brought that up. What I would suggest is once we see who's available for that meeting,
Mhm.
let's have a meeting of those folks, just
Okay.
a short, or even a Zoom meeting,
Mhm.
if that's okay.
Working groups,
Working
Working
group,
group.
Zoom
Working group.
meeting of
Not-
the people who are presenting
not
and
subcommittees.
facilitating.
Is there a limit to the number of people in that working group?
Yes, 3 for this committee.
Great.
So a motion to adjourn,
Should we adjourn?
Beth, and a second,
Second.
John, all in favor? Everyone in
I'm sorry,
favor?
who made the motion? before-
Beth,
And who
And-
seconded?
Jen.
Thank you.
Thank you, Nancy.
Thank you.
Stay warm.
Bye-bye.
And remember, that tomorrow, if you want to attend at Seacoast Rep 8 and 8:30 at 3S on Friday.
Okay, gonna end. Bye, Nancy.